Have you ever done something truly evil and destroyed someone's whole life?
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Let's get into the first YouTube animation video of the channel. This should be juicy.
I was 19 and about to graduate from high school. But then my math teacher, Mr. Cumberbatch, told me I'd failed his class and would have to repeat the year.
The setting here of her being in her classroom is very familiar, but I can't seem to get out what it is.
I was devastated because I had already made plans to go to college. So I started crying and begged him to show mercy and let me pass. But he said, no, and shook his head.
This is the only thing I have to say about this this part of this clip is that the way he shook his head made me die inside. I swear to you, I was on my chair laughing for at least 5 minutes.
In a last attempt, I gave him a big hug and said, "Please, Mr. Cumberbatch, isn't there anything I can do?"
You hear to hear, folks. When your teacher says that you're failing all your classes, give him a big hug and ask him if there's anything you can do about it.
He pushed me away and said, "No, it's too late now." But I showed persistence and kept begging him, saying, "Please, please, please, Mr. Cumberbatch, isn't there anything I can do for you?"
Again with begging Mr. Cumberbatch to let her pass. This is getting even more suspicious than what I thought it would be in the beginning.
Finally, he had a change of heart and wrote down an address on a paper and said, "Okay, come here on Saturday, 6 p.m. We will do some math exercises, and if you do well, I will change your grade and let you pass."
It's time to stop! It's time to stop, okay? No more! Where the fuck are your parents? Who are your parents? I'm gonna call Child Protective Services. It's time to stop!
It seriously is time to stop. This is my first ever video currently on this channel, and it's on a animation video that's making me cringe my ass off. I feel bad for whoever has to watch this video in the future.
I gave him one last hug and said, "Thank you, Mr. Cumberbatch, you are the best." When Saturday arrived, I was very nervous. I didn't know if I was going on a date or if I was getting a private math lesson. But just to be sure, I dressed myself up. I put on my old school uniform, but made a few changes to look as exciting as possible.
You gotta love when you go to your math teacher's class to get a quote-unquote private math lesson and you're thinking about it being a date. Like, you're contemplating on whether or not you should dress nice because you think it's gonna be a date. That's just straight weird. Like, that disgusts me.
When I arrived at his house, he opened the door and said, "Come in, you're looking gorgeous today." I responded with, "Thank you, Mr. Cumberbatch, you're looking good too." We sat down at a desk and he told me to solve some math problems, but I couldn't focus. Mr. Cumberbatch was so close to me and I realized how attractive he was.
You gotta love when you catch feelings for your math teacher when he's strangely and oddly close to you.
I mean, I was 19 and he was only 10 years older than me. What turned me on the most was the authority he had over me. He could decide whether I would pass the year or repeat it. At one point, I just stared into his eyes and hoped he would kiss me, but I guess he was too nervous. So instead, I kissed him, and he liked it.
I'm regretting every moment of my life right now on wasting a good 10 minutes on watching this YouTube video. And I'm contemplating on whether or not I should pour bleach into my eyes to stop the pain going on inside my head of the thought of a 19-year-old kissing their high school math teacher.
Kissing my high school teacher wasn't technically illegal, but we still broke the rules of our school. A teacher-student relationship was strictly prohibited, but that's what made it so exciting.
Damn right it's prohibited inside their school. You may be of legal age, but if the principal or any high official of the school would figure out that you're in a relationship with your teacher, it could end out really poorly for both of you guys.
When we said goodbye to each other, I asked him if I had studied enough to pass the year, and he said, "You have worked very hard today, and therefore I will let you pass." I said, "Thank you, Mr. Cumberbatch," and gave him one more kiss on his mouth. This might shock you, but it was my first time. And because of my inexperience, I forgot to tell him to use protection. So 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant.
Okay, so this is what the title is about. So, first time, quote unquote, forgets to warn the teacher to use protection, which is a very bad part on the teacher. I would assume that he would know that, but I'm not getting into sex ed. This is not your average elementary school. But, yeah. Recap, kid gets pregnant. Let's go. Let's endure some more pain.
I didn't mind, though, because I really liked Mr. Cumberbatch. The next day, I went up to him at school to tell him about the baby. I secretly hoped we would become a couple. But when he heard the news, he got angry and said, "You will go to the pharmacy right now and get the pill." I didn't like the way he talked to me. This was my body and therefore my decision. I asked him if he was interested in raising the baby with me, but he freaked out and screamed, "I already have a wife and kid. I'll never take care of your stupid baby. Go to the pharmacy right now." I screamed back, "You're married?" And he said, "Of course, and don't act like you didn't know. All my students know I have a wife and kid."
As if anybody could think that this couldn't have gotten any creepier. I'm not going to go into sex ed because, of course, it's, like I said, it's not the average elementary school class. And I'm not going to get into brave detail, but I'm pretty sure that you guys know what's going on here.
Wow, what a jerk! Not only did he betray his wife, but now he was trying to put the blame on me. I got angry and said, "I will keep the baby and tell your wife what you did." That's when he almost had a seizure and screamed right at me, "You won't do that!" But then I had an idea. I knew I would keep the baby anyway, but at least I could pretend to make a deal with him. I said, "If you turn all my grades into straight A's, then I will change my mind on the baby." Mr. Cumberbatch was desperate. He agreed to the deal and snuck into our school at night to change my grades on the principal's computer. But 2 days later, on my graduation day, things went wrong. When my principal handed over my report card, he took a quick look at it and said, "There must have been a mistake." I immediately knew my plan had failed, and the next day I got my real report card, and my grades were terrible. The only A I got was in Mr. Cumberbatch's math class. I knew it wasn't his fault, but I was so angry, I found out his address and went to his house.
Why is this so infuriating for me? I don't know why. I'm like not infuriating by mad. It's just creepy. Like now the 19-year-old girl is going to a 39-year-old's house to his wife to try and expose him. At least that's what I think is going on. I haven't watched this yet. That's all I had to say. Let's just keep watching.
A woman opened the door, and she was pregnant too. I asked her if she was the wife of Mr. Cumberbatch, and she said yes. Then Mr. Cumberbatch appeared next to her. He stared at me in a very threatening way. For a moment I had doubts, but then I looked straight into her eyes and said, "Your husband got me pregnant, and he has no interest in taking responsibility for his mistake." I hoped she would get angry at her husband, but instead she got angry at me, screaming, "You bitch! You've seduced my husband, you dirty bitch!" Wow, if Mr. Cumberbatch hadn't held her back from me, I might not be alive today.
As if this isn't worse enough, now the wife is beating the shit out of the 19-year-old girl who got pregnant from her husband. This is getting pretty juicy, bro.
I was shocked and went back home, but it got worse. The next day, she came to my house and used a golf club to break in through a window. My parents weren't at home to protect me, so I fled to the rooftop and called the police. They arrived in time and took Mrs. Cumberbatch into custody. 2 weeks later, she was sentenced to 24 months in prison. But this story gets even crazier. I called up Mr. Cumberbatch and told him we needed to talk. We met at a restaurant and I asked him, "How much child support will you pay me each month?" He responded, "I'm only a teacher. I don't make much money." But I asked again, "How much child support are you going to pay me?" He said, "Look, my pregnant wife is in prison and we both know she is insane. I will divorce her as soon as possible and I'd like you to come live with me. It will be the best for both you and the baby." I immediately said yes because I was scared of being a single mom.
Okay, so after the teacher repeatedly calls the 19-year-old names and, betrays his wife, does everything like that, And now he doesn't want to play child support, so invites her to live with her and divorces his wife. This is the worst excuse of a video. I don't know if this is real or not, but this is probably the worst excuse of a storytelling video in the world. It seems like the fakest thing I've ever heard in my lifetime.
But after my daughter was born, I had to take care of both her and Mr. Cumberbatch's other baby. At first I didn't mind. I loved them both. But then I saw how Mr. Cumberbatch preferred his other daughter over mine. He spent more time with her and treated her so much better.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to get copyright striked, and I don't want this video to run as long as the My Teacher Got Me Pregnant video, how long it originally is. So I'm just gonna cut it there. Link in description of the actual video, and I'll give credit to the YouTuber who made it. Anyway, resolve that issue. I will see you guys later. Goodbye.